Hey guys, today we're going to be taking a look at Buyer's Easy Gate Tailgate Assist for landscape trailers. This is a great accessory for your trailer. We all know your tailgate can get heavy, and the last thing you want to do at the end of the day is try to lift it up to close it so you can head home, because that can be up to 180 pounds and you just don't have any energy left. That's where the Easy Gate comes into play. It's going to take a lot of the weight off that tailgate to make it a lot easier to lift up and close, thus taking the strain off your back. It uses a coil spring that's on the inside of this housing tube. When you lower your tailgate, the spring is going to expand, which is what's helping take the weight off when you're lowering it. And when you raise it, the spring is going to recoil and come back into itself, which is what's helping pull it back up, thus taking the weight off. What I like about this system is that it's pretty low profile. It only adds about 3.5 inches to the top of your side rail, and it doesn't take up any space on the inside of your trailer, which is probably what you're going to want to use for your tools and other gear. It also has a nice carbon steel construction to it with a black powder coat finish, so that's going to help resist rust and corrosion. Now overall, it's going to add about 7.5 feet to your side rail from the tailgate up to this point. So this is something to keep in mind in case you want to mount any other type of accessory to your trailer. Now this Easy Gate is going to work for side rail heights from 10 to 24 inches, that measurement being from the bed of your trailer up 10 inches and up to 24 inches. If it's any higher, it's going to be at too high of an angle to be able to support your trailer when you're lowering it. And one kit's also going to be able to support a tailgate up to 180 pounds. If you got a tailgate that exceeds that weight, you might want to consider getting a second one to put on the other side. Now buyers really went the extra mile when designing this. They installed an anti-rattle insert on this half of the housing tube. That's where the coil spring sits. What that's going to do is while you're driving down the highway, it's going to prevent that metal spring from rattling around too much and creating a bunch of noise. I'll give you an example of the noise difference between the two sides. On the anti-rattle side, you can see it's pretty quiet, you can't hear too much, but when I come to this side, it's just like when you're hitting your wrench on a piece of metal. Now as far as installation goes, it might take you a few hours because you are going to have to drill multiple holes into the metal frame of your trailer. But as long as you follow the instructions and take your time, you should be able to get it all done by yourself. We'll go ahead and show you how to do it now. Before we begin, I want to show you everything that's going to come in your kit so you can just kind of make a checklist to make sure you got everything. Now we're going to have the spring right here, this is what's going to be taking the weight off of your tailgate, so it's going to make it a lot easier to lower and raise it. Then we have the housing for that spring, and then we have all of our included hardware over here. Now one thing I do want to point out is down here we're going to have 6 of these 1.5-inch bolts. We're also going to have 6 of these 3-inch bolts. Now the only reason they include the 3-inch bolts is if your side rails are a tubular design, but because we only have a standard angle iron design, we're just going to use the shorter ones. Now we're going to make our markings for where we need to drill in our side rail. We're going to start at the back part of our side rail, and we're going to go 90 inches all the way up. And then we're going to just make a mark so we can drill. Go ahead and lock that in place. We'll grab our paint marker. We'll come at 90 inches. You want to try to make the mark in the center of the rail, because that's where you're going to have to drill. We made our little mark. It kind of looks like a T. So we're just going to mark at the intersection right there, and we can begin drilling. Now I have a smaller drill bit right here. We're just using that to make a small pilot hole, and then we're going to step it up to a 1/2-inch drill bit to drill out the rest of the way. Now we've gone all the way through the rail. Before we step it up to our 1/2-inch bit, we're going to go ahead and vacuum up those metal shavings. You want to make sure you do this all the way throughout the installation. Now we'll go ahead and drill it out the rest of the way with our 1/2-inch bit. Now from here on out, any measurement I give you is going to be towards the back of the trailer. So we're going to go 6 inches from the center of our first hole out towards the back, and we're going to make a mark for another drill. It's easiest to lock your tape measure in place. Remember to get it from the center of that hole you drilled. And then we'll make our mark. Now we're going to drill a hole that's 5/16 of an inch wide. We don't need to drill a pilot hole because the 5/16 bit is small enough to where you don't really need one. So again, we're going to go at the center of our mark. Once you feel you're there, just begin drilling. Now from the new hole that we just drilled, which is the 5/16 hole, we're going to go 30 inches back towards the back. Again, we'll make our mark at 30 inches. Then we'll grab our drill with the 5/16 bit and drill out the hole. Now again, I'm going to go from the hole we just drilled and go 30 more inches back and drill one final 5/16 hole. Now the bottom of your drilled out holes might have some metal shavings on them. You can just take a file or anything like that. Just kind of scrape it off with the file. Just make it smooth it out. You want to go and do this for every hole. Once you've done that, we're just going to take some spray paint, and because we have some exposed metal from drilling out the holes, we're just going to use some black spray paint to kind of cover it up, help resist rust and corrosion. Now we're going to mount our 3 housing clamps to the 3 5/16 holes we drilled. We're going to make sure that the head of our screw is facing the outside. Just put it right on top. We have a flat washer on our 1/2-inch bolt. And push it down through, and then we're going to take a washer and a lock nut, come from the underside, put that on. Now we're going to have to grab a 1/2-inch socket and a 1/2-inch wrench so we can tighten it down all the way. So we did run into one small problem. The rail on our trailer is pretty thin, so we ran out of threading on our bolt, so it wasn't able to tighten down all the way. So we fixed this. We just grabbed another washer that was just laying around, threw it on as a second one, and we're going to tighten it back up, and that should do the trick. Now when you get close to the end, make sure you realign your housing just in case it got off while you were tightening it down, and then tighten it down all the way. Now repeat this process for the other 2 housings, and if your rail is too thin for those as well, just again grab some extra washers. Now we're going to mount our roller bracket. This is going to sit on top of our side rail, and it's going to sit flush with the back of it right here. And you also want to make sure you get it in the center. So once you have it in place, we're just going to take a marker, and we're going to mark our holes where we need to drill out some holes. And also make note that the longer side with the 2 holes is facing towards the front, while the shorter side with the 1 hole is facing the back. Now we have our holes marked. We're going to use our same 5/16 drill bit and drill out the rails. Now using the same hardware as earlier, we're going to mount our bracket, except this time we're not going to need an extra washer because the thickness of our bracket is enough to cover up the threads. So we'll just start it, and then we'll get the next 2 bolts and just get them on there for now, and we'll tighten them all down at the same time. And then just tighten them down. Now we're going to mount the spring assembly to our side rail. We're going to mount the eye bolt right here in the 1/2-inch hole that we drilled. You want to make sure that the opening is facing the front of the trailer, and make sure you do put a washer right there before you start. So we'll just put another washer and then our lock nut on the other side and begin to tighten it down. And then once it gets there, you're going to have to grab a socket and wrench. And then we'll just tighten it down. Now due to having the angle iron sides, we ran into another small problem, but nothing that we couldn't fix. See, I have the other eye bolt right here. You can see that we run out of thread before we get to the bottom side of our rail. So we just took a pipe spacer and put it up there, and then used the same washer, and that fixed the problem. If you have the angle iron side trailer, then you might run into the few problems that we have so far, but it's nothing you can't fix. Now we're going to take the housing for our spring and feed it through. We'll start with the chain, and you do want to make sure that the side that has the Easygate emblem, and it also has this fixture right here, this white part you can see coming out, you want to make sure that that's facing the back and it's the first one you put on. So we'll feed this chain through the housing real quick. And what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to put the pipe through the housing right here, and then just feed it through, and just keep feeding the spring through all the way. Now what we're going to do is that we're going to make sure we get the housing just to the other side of our bracket right here. Something that's going to just make it easier, and what we did for the other two is we're just going to take that screw all the way out for now, just set it aside, and then we'll bring it all the way through, like so. And we'll come back just a little bit right there. Now we're going to take the other end of our housing and begin to feed it through like we did the first time. We'll take that chain and go first. We'll come through this housing, just pull it apart a bit. There we go. Then when we get up to that PVC end, we'll just have to slide it on. It's going to be a tight fit, but you want to make sure that you get it all the way on like that. Now we're just going to take a screwdriver and go down and tighten down all of our housing clamps right here. Be sure to use a screwdriver just so you have more control. You don't want to over tighten it all. You just want to get it pretty snug. Now normally with these types of trailers, you can see your tailgate lines up on the inside of your rail, but because this one comes up against it, we can't put the eye bolts on the side because that would be putting the cable at an angle, which wouldn't be good for it. So what we're going to do is we're going to drill a hole through this side and out the other side, and the eye bolt's just going to be standing on the tailgate like this. If you have to do this, it's up to you. But just keep in mind that you will have to avoid it if you're trying to load stuff, but because it's on the side, I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. So you can see on the other side, we already made our mark where we want to put it. We're going to need to drill out a small pilot hole and then step it up to a 1/2-inch drill bit afterwards. Now using the same hardware as earlier, we're going to mount the eye bolt right here in the 1/2-inch hole that we drilled. Now our last step is going to be to install our rollers. We're going to do the bottom one first, and we're going to put it in the lowest hole right there. So we're going to slide it in and just let it sit there. We're going to take a washer, put it on, and then feed it through right there. Now on the other side, we're going to put a washer and a lock nut and then tighten it down. Now how we're going to get the second roller in place is we're going to put our snap hook on our links right here and then pull up right there. Then we're going to attach it to the eye hook and then just kind of make sure it's in line with the track right there. Now we're going to come over here. We're going to let down our tailgate. And it raises up a bit right there, but as you come down, just kind of go slow and make sure that the cord goes in between the bracket like that and it rests on that bottom roller. And now that it's all the way down, we'll come back around. It's going to be a lot easier to put this top roller in. It's going to go the exact same way as the bottom one. Washer. Go ahead and put it in. We're going to install it on the top one for now. If you do this and find that it will work out better for it to be in the bottom hole, then just go ahead and go back and redo it. And then once we do that, we'll put a washer on the other side with a lock nut. Then we'll tighten it down. And then we'll go back to the bottom roller and make sure that's tight as well. I want to point out that you want to make sure that the spring is not pulling too much. And how you can tell is that your tailgate will not be touching the ground. If it's pulling up on it, that's going to be too tight, and you can just go back and adjust which link you want it on. But ours is good, so we're going to go ahead and lift it up. Like so. Then we'll lock it in place. And now there's one more thing I want to point out to you guys. And that's over here. You see our cable, which is kind of loose right here. It's kind of resting on the bottom part of this tube. And also our chain's kind of loose right here. So to take that slack out, all we're going to do is take the snap hook off. And we're going to move the snap hook down one link. Right there. There we go. And we'll bring it back up and attach it to the eye hook right there. And now you see that slack is taken out of both, and now you're ready for travel. Once you've made any adjustments that you need to, go ahead and test it out a couple more times. But after that, your install is going to be complete, and you won't ever have to worry about straining your back to raise or lower your tailgate again. With all that being said, that's going to do it for our look at Buyer's Easy Gate Tailgate Assist.